So, today I want to talk about inadequacy, and I have this quote that I'm sure you guys have heard because lots of people have heard it. Well, maybe I'm making that up. It just seems like lots of people have heard it. And the quote is, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." And I'm curious if you guys agree with that. I've heard that lots of times, and every time I'm like, I don't really know how I feel about that. So I'm just curious if you think that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. So just give me a yes or a no, and if you want to give an explanation, you can do that too. And I'm just curious what people think about that. Excuse me. You 100% agree, huh? I am curious why you would say that. So I told you just to say yes or no, but I'm curious why you feel that way. Jonah syndrome? I'd love to hear you talk about this. Because Jonah was asked to go preach to the people and he ran away from it. Right? Am I getting my Bible stories right? Shelby, you think it's true too? I think it's more of an empowering statement. The fact that we are powerful beyond measure, almost like permission to be who you're meant to be. Yeah, I can see that. So I'm going to tell you some of my thoughts on it. If you'd like to keep sending your thoughts, feel free to. So initially, when I initially heard that, I'm like, I'm not really sure if that's true for me. But we're going to get into that. So the problem, there's a huge problem that we face, though, as people, and I think that there's a ton of people that live in a place of inadequacy. They feel like they're not adequate. They feel like they're not enough. That's like a very common, I just don't feel like I'm enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. And so that's why I want to talk about this today, because I think that so many people operate from that place of feeling like they're not adequate for whatever their life's duties are, or whatever they feel like they want to do. Like sometimes people won't do things because they don't feel like they're good enough to do them, or sometimes people are asked to do certain things and they don't, they just continue to be in this place where they feel like they're not good enough to be doing those things. So, what I believe is that there's two kinds of inadequacy. There's one kind of inadequacy that I think is felt in recognition that we're nothing without God, and that creates, hi Annie, that creates a humility and a submissiveness to, let's see, I'm going to read what Molly said. "We all have grand purposes and callings that scare us. I think we all have a sense of who we are, but it's hard to let your light shine for many reasons." Yes, so, yes. I think we do get scared of our callings sometimes, for sure. And that everyone somewhere inside of them has a sense of who they're meant to be, but it's just figuring out how to break through the barriers that are there, including the fear. So I think there's two kinds of inadequacy. There's a kind of inadequacy where we recognize that we're nothing without God, and that creates humility and submissiveness. And so we're teachable, and we just recognize that all that we are and can be and can do is through Him. So I don't even know that I'd call that inadequacy. I would just call that humility. But sometimes people put those in the same sentence. I remember, I think it was Henry B. Eyring actually talked about how he felt an inadequacy in a talk. It's like I keep hearing his voice. Hey, how are you? Thanks for hopping on. So the second kind of inadequacy is fueled by the devil. And it's fueled to scare us and to to cause, so some people will run, some people will freeze, some people will hide, some people will refuse to do certain things, and like there's this stubborn refusal that gets created. And I think that all comes from this fear that he tries to invoke inside of people, and it's a super intense fear for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that kind of always stay the same, and they never really break out of who they've always been, because they feel inadequate, and there's fear, so there's all these things tied in, but we're just going to blanket statement it with the word inadequacy. So the second part of that quote is by, well, according to Wikipedia, it's by Marianne Deborah Williamson. So the second part of that quote says, "It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." And I think that the things she says are really beautiful, but again, I was like, okay, how does this all make sense? And so that's why I wanted to ask you guys, do you think that that is true? Like, do you feel like for yourself that your power or your light scares you? Do you think that that is your greatest fear more than the fear of the inadequacy? So as I thought about this, I actually really believe that, so we all have thoughts that go through our head all the time, right? And I can say that I know that the devil communicates to us through our thoughts as well. That's when we talk about being tempted. Light is usually a huge responsibility. It takes action. So yes, that is so on point. Yes. It causes us to have to move out of our comfort zone. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. So when we talk about being tempted, or, sometimes there's like the classic cartoon where there's an angel and a devil, and it's not a joke. Like, the reason that exists is because it's real. That's really how it works. So the devil communicates to us through our thoughts, and I think that sometimes we think they're our own thoughts, and in actuality they've become our own thoughts because we adopted them. So yes, it's harder to do something and easy to do nothing. That's so painfully true. And I think we all have to, in order to progress, we have to come to a place where we're ready to accept that reality. So I think that he gives us thoughts, and then the minute that we ruminate on that thought, it's like we're accepting it and we're letting that seed be planted, and then it starts to go on replay, right? And so the more that a thought replays, the more it becomes part of us, and it feels like it's our own. When in reality, like I said, those thoughts don't usually originate from our own selves, but he's out to destroy us, right? So I believe that this quote actually is talking about the devil. His deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, which is what he always tries to tell us. He always tries to tell us that we're not enough and we can't do it. But that's not really the issue here. That's the mask, because the deepest fear he has is the knowledge that we are powerful beyond measure, and that our light is far more powerful than his darkness. But see, the darkness always, people are scared of the dark. Isn't it interesting that from a young age we're scared of the dark? Darkness tries to invoke fear inside of us. But just like when you turn on the light, the darkness has to give way to the light. That's just the way that it works. So I think that this quote is actually talking from a place of the devil's standpoint. And so then he uses these two hooks on us. One, which I think is a huge one, which masks. So again, we have power beyond measure, and we have incredible light and incredible ability and potential to do great things. But he causes us to feel like we're inadequate, but really it's the light that's more powerful. Hopefully that's making sense. So the first tactic or hook that I think he uses is he wants us to